Hi, my name's Craig Mackay. I'm with CMC Ontario. I have with me the managing partner, Sandy Moir of Goss Gilroy. They've prepared a report on the lessons learned from Phoenix. What would be the number one lesson learned that you could share with us?
Well, yeah, 17 lessons in 6 major areas, so there were lots of lessons. But I think what we've been saying throughout all of our various presentations we've been doing is that really it was the underestimation of the complexity of what was changing. And so the proper project initiative definition, if you will, and then understanding, as I say, what was changing. So was it just a system that was being replaced? Was it just the movement of compensation advisors? In fact, it was much more. It was culture, it was processes, it was just basically how the government does business and how it administers pay. All those things were changing, and they weren't fully recognized when the project was scoped, and that's really what led to its downfall.
So the fact that they were worried about spending extra money was a concern. You talked about that ratio between dollars and scope and time, and how they didn't want to rock that boat. So there was some pressure there. You talked about the initial project definition really didn't understand the complexity of the regional pay system and all the different elements that had to be taken into consideration. And then there was no sort of pilot. Talk a little bit about some of those errors or omissions.
Yeah, well, for sure the testing was not ideal. They didn't really do a pilot. They did lots of testing, just not enough testing. As we can see, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. The system is not operating the way they expected it to. And you talk about that triangle between, budget, scope, and time. They didn't feel that they had flexibility with respect to their budget and the time. They really felt that they had to meet the agreed upon timelines within the budget. So that left scope. So unfortunately, a lot of the planned automation ended up getting dropped in the first release. And that's what led to the need for lots of manual interventions at the pay center, which led to the rather significant queue. So for sure, those are big issues. But I think, too, another important lesson that really permeates the whole assignment and all of our findings is just around culture.
Right. The change management dealing with that as well.
Yeah, well, recognizing, first of all, what they were dealing with in terms of culture,
right,
and then properly managing that. So that really wasn't done. I mean, one of the really important cultural, perhaps structural facts that the federal government, in terms of how they administer their pay, is that it's largely done retroactively. So they don't do it in advance, so to speak. So if you know that someone will be acting, they always enter that information after the acting has taken place. Well, Phoenix, being a PeopleSoft product, doesn't like that. It likes it when it knows before the acting takes place, or before the person starts their job, or before they leave their job. And then in those cases, when the information is entered beforehand, there's no problem. But because the culture within the federal government is everything is done retroactively, we end up with a big, giant queue of manual interactions that have to be done.
Right, and that definitely probably was not taken into consideration.
No, I don't think so. And then other cultural
overruns, yeah.
That's right. And then lots of other cultural issues with respect to speaking truth to power, aversion to failure, all kinds of areas there as well that came up and were in fact reflected in our lessons too.
So I'm going to ask you a difficult question. When you're contracted by the government to do a study, it can be difficult on consulting firms to remain objective when they're being given a task that's defined. How did Goss Gilroy deal with that?
Well, I'm happy to say we were really brought in to be independent and to do this independent assessment. Yes, our contract was with the Treasury Board Secretariat, but we really felt that we had two project sponsors, if you will, the Deputy Minister at PSPC and the Secretary of the Treasury Board. And they and the departmental audit committees for both organizations were very clear that they wanted an honest assessment, they wanted it to be independent, they wanted the report to be sharp and not hold our punches, so that we really took that to heart, and that's, I think, what we came up with. And, we were also told that they wanted a lessons learned lens, so they didn't want finger pointing, they didn't want blame, which I know I personally was much more comfortable with, sort of what can we learn from this? Which we really tried to do as well. And, we had, of course, the day-to-day contact with Treasury Board Secretariat, and as well as a contact at PSPC, and they really helped to facilitate the project. So when we wanted to speak to a certain person, they helped us identify them, where were they, get contact information. When we needed a certain document to validate something we were hearing through consultations, again, they were enabling, we got every document that we wanted to get a hold of. So I think that it was the posture of the project sponsors was very open to the independence, but also, we as well, the whole team was made up of CMCs, and
Right.
we
That's
took
good.
our obligations very seriously, that we were putting forward an honest assessment of what we saw and what we really thought was wrong. And we were told right from day one that this would be coming out as a branded Goss-Gilroy report. And as a representative of that organization, as a partner, it's my obligation to make sure that I have confidence and pride in the products that I produce, and I think that we achieved it with this one.
Well, thank you for your talk today for CMC here in Ottawa. And the report's available on the Treasury Board website.
It is.
And check it out, and check out #ConsultingOttawa.